Greetings, everybody. Welcome to SCORE and our workshop today titled Branding. This is another one of our series of digital marketing workshops where we've been doing many of these over the last couple of years. Returning today is an illustrious speaker, Daniel Hickey, who runs Hickey Marketing Group here in Prescott. By the way, we're at the Prescott Library. And we've got folks that are in the room in person. Welcome everybody for coming. And we have a number of folks that are calling in remotely from Utah and Arizona. My name is Tim D'Andrea. I'm a certified mentor with SCORE, 5 years this year. And I'm also the workshops coordinator for the Northern Arizona chapter. We're here for about an hour. We actually have a little time afterwards, so please don't jump off at the top of the hour because we've got time to hang out for any lingering questions, which I'm sure there will be plenty. So Daniel will be up here momentarily. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself. He is a pretty astute person, has a digital marketing company and a video production company here in the Prescott area. And let me bring Daniel up now, and just some kind of ground rules for the folks that are remoting from Zoom. We're going to set up. We have a chat box, which I think I might have to enable, and a Q&A button as well. If you have questions, please use the Q&A. If you want to chat and leave comments, we urge you to use the chat. And other than that, feel free to reach out through chat or Q&A with comments, questions as we go. And Daniel, take it away.
All right. Whoops. That's not good. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming in and attending. We appreciate it. For those of you here and online. For you on Zoom, I apologize. I'm a walker, so you're probably going to see some back and forth here, but it is just part of the game. So yeah, really appreciate the time. One of the key things that we really wanted to run through in this presentation is a lot of the misconceptions around branding. It is by far the number one thing that we see businesses get confused about, and even big marketing firms. It's a lot of fun because we white label with a lot of really big firms. We've got to work on a lot of Fortune 500 projects. Even within that realm, you still see a lot of big companies arguing about what a brand actually is. So we want to kind of go through that and look at some case studies, look at some examples. But the biggest thing is taking away things that you can use in your business today, right away, based on a lot of our findings, a lot of the things that we've seen. It's really been kind of cool. It feels almost like God has put us into a few rooms that we're like, how did we actually get here? For really major companies, if you've been in Dick's Sporting Goods, if you've been in Home Depot, you've seen some of the work that we've got to work on. And what we've noticed is big companies that are established, that really have their marketing down, they don't make a lot of the mistakes that small to mid-sized businesses do. They look at everything from a mathematical standpoint. And a lot of the times the logos, taglines, slogans, and brands that they built aren't what the founder falls in love with. For those of you here, I brought these out from the archives. So you have our bottle opener business cards there. These are one of the first things that we ever came out with. That has our old logo on it. And we're going to see in a moment kind of how that plays into the evolution of companies, of logos, of simplicity, of looking at the numbers. So this presentation really is about how to brand your business like those do. Uh-oh. All right, what is this saying? All right.
That's your website.
Yes. So, all right, what is our... All right, so one of the primary things that we want to look at is, why does branding actually matter? And really, at the end of the day, the main reasons that this matters is because strong brands like Nike, Coca-Cola, these brands, they can do a lot of things. Number one, they could charge more. Number two, they convert at a higher rate. When a company like Nike puts out a new product and they get into a new element, they get into a new product line, they don't have to beg for sales. People are like, oh, if you carry that now, I'm all on board. We got it. We already have brand association with that. Same thing. When you have a company like Disney that actually starts doing cruises, families line up. They sign up for it. They know that it's something that's going to be trustworthy, and they immediately just understand what that product is. They don't have to try to explain to an entire market what that means. So they charge more, they convert at a higher rate. And the other thing is they have lower churn. So they have less people leaving that brand than they would if they were just a commodity style product. Someone that's selling white t-shirts, if someone else sells something that feels very similar, looks very similar, they're going to have a very hard time differentiating themselves in that marketplace. And once people start buying a particular product, it's very rare that they switch. When you know people who have drank Starbucks coffee for the past 20 years, it's very rare that they just on a whim switch brands. That's what that brand did. It taught them what that product was, how it was used, what the value proposition was. And there's not a lot of people that churn or leave those big brands for smaller brands. The other really key thing is increased repeat sales. Just like we were talking, people not leaving a brand, it also means that at the end of the day, people are understanding what that brand's value proposition is. They have it, they're repeat clients, but they also tell other people and repeat their behavior on a regular basis. One more thing I did want to pop in and mention for those online as well as here. There's a lot of information in the slides, and I think the presentation is over 50 something slides. So it'd be a lot to go through on your own. So we actually created a downloadable PDF that has all of these things, as well as a really neat checklist at the end. So if you go to hickeymarketinggroup.com/score, you can get that entire PDF. It has a downloadable, a checklist that has all of the information, the pertinent information for your business on here, as well as a really easy checklist that you can follow to make sure that you have all that dialed in. So what else? Okay, in addition to that, so you have increased valuations. This is one of those things we've had a lot of clients get really interested in as they start getting to the point where they're thinking about selling their business. If you have a business that doesn't have a brand, but you're a landscaping company, you're a roofing company, and it really doesn't have a strong brand, what you're going to be able to sell that business for is not that much compared to if you were a strong valued brand. There was a valuation done of Nike as a brand. One of the things that they looked at there is they were like, okay, if there was no intellectual property with Nike, you weren't getting the designs, you weren't getting the shoes, you weren't getting any of those things, how much would that brand be worth? And that brand they were looking at, they were like, people would still pay it over $1 billion for the brand alone with no factories, no intellectual property, just knowing that that brand means so much to so many people and is ingrained within them. So that's a huge thing. So they get increased valuations. And the other thing is they're removed from the commodity category. If someone's looking for a soda, but they're a Coke drinker, they're going to keep looking throughout the store, different vending machines until they find what they want. They're not in the market for a soda. They're in the market for a Coke. And that's exactly what that brand looks like when you actually get it built out. Your product becomes non-elastic and it becomes much more difficult for people to find a replacement for, because they're not looking for that product. They're looking for your product. Another thing that's really important to go over is what a brand is not. And this is where people get this is touchy. You want to see a fist fight break out with a bunch of marketing firms in the room? This is how you do it. Talk about what a brand is and what it is not. And one of the key things that we see here is there's a lot of misconceptions. When you talk about a brand, people are like, oh, I know exactly what that is, but it's usually the exact opposite. So when we look at this, a brand is not your logo. Your brand, yeah.
I wonder if we can move the images off the screen.
Yeah, that's right. Perfect. I love it.
Sorry.
No. So yeah, your logo is your logo is important. It's not your brand. So many people think, oh, I have my brand done. We have our logo. The other thing is when it comes to your brand is not your logo. It is not your tagline. It's not your slogan. It's also not your ad campaigns. It's absolutely not just your website. It's not your social feed. It's not your photos. It's not your videos. It's none of those things. So if it's not that, well, before we get into that, how do we know that it's not your tagline, your slogan, and your logo that builds your brand? Because for a lot of marketing firms, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's exactly what it is. Your brand is a culmination of your logo, tagline, slogan. That's where your business is. That's where people are actually understanding what you do. But a couple of case studies I want to look at, if that's true, is
Yeah, I kind of
kind of think of the brand as more the perception in your prospects and your customers' mind.
Absolutely.
So I
So
mean, all of that stuff is good,
100%.
but how does your prospect and your customer view
Yep.
you in their mind, in their
Right.
brain?
Well, it gives them an anchor. Like your logo gives them, it's almost like a person's name. A name is a great thing, but how people associate with that name depends on your actions over and over in that repetition. So you're exactly right. And one of the things that we look at, like Bud Light did not change their logo. They didn't change their tagline. They didn't change their slogan, but all of a sudden out of nowhere, sales dropped dramatically when they made a pairing with their brand, with somebody that the company looked at and said, I don't know this company anymore. Like they were very much football games, they were rodeos, they were a good night out on the town. And I don't know what this pairing is. This doesn't make any sense to me. They didn't change their logo, didn't change their tagline or slogan. What they did change is the perception of what they were. And all of a sudden that consistency where people are like, oh, I know Tom, Tom's a great time. And he comes to a party and you're like, what is he doing right now? Like, this is a very weird thing for Tom to be doing. It was the same thing with Bud Light. That pairing with Dylan Mulvaney, people looked at and they were like, ooh, this is a good fit for a lot of brands. I don't know about this one. And on the exact opposite side of things, we have the exact same thing with Tesla. So the same exact people who said, I am on this side of the aisle politically. I want to show that I'm part of this group, Tesla. That's how I show to the world that this is who I am. Then all of a sudden, the logo didn't change, tagline didn't change, slogan didn't change, but Elon Musk started affiliating and associating with different groups that company looked at and the people who purchased, and all of a sudden the same people who were purchasing these wearing Tesla hats and excited to represent the brand are looking at it and they're burning them in the lots right now. Tagline didn't change, logo didn't change, slogan didn't change. So what did change? The consistency of the brand really changed everything. So when we look at that, and I love it, you kind of hit it on the head. What is a brand then? A brand at the end of the day is the culmination and the sum of all of those parts. It's the logo, tagline, slogan, ad campaign, website, social feed photos, and videos all together, and the associations that they are consistently on. The best brands in the world they view all of those elements very much as a cohesive story. It's a movie that might play out for 20 or 30 years. So when you look at specific brands, you notice that even when you're scrolling through your feed at a mile a minute, or you see a commercial from a mile away, you know that that's an Allstate commercial, or you know that that's a Nike commercial, or you know that that's a particular brand because the color scheme is very much identified. You're certain people with a voiceover and you're like, oh, I know exactly which insurance company that is, even though you don't know what they're selling. From a mile away, you know what that brand is. The other thing is, so it's really the sum of all those parts plus your brand associations and affiliations. Who is your brand associating with? That is another really key element. So who's your brand associating with? Plus consistency. And that is, to your point, what creates that foundation for a relationship to be built on with your current, existing, and future clients. And that's key because at the end of the day, that's what people are looking for is consistency. For years, we had these companies saying, we are this type of company. And it's funny because when you get people who are into a particular thing, like Tim drives a Jeep. I drive a Jeep. If I ask Tim, what's your next car going to be? It's very likely going to be a new Jeep. Like people who drive Jeeps, that becomes a part of their culture. When you find someone who drives motorcycles and rides motorcycles, that's great. That's very different than someone who rides a Harley. When you ask them what their next motorcycle is going to be and they ride a Harley, it's going to be, spoiler alert, another Harley, because it's become part of who they are. They know the brand is consistent. It consistently says something about them. And that's what I think a lot of people get wrong is that brands say much more about the people who use that brand than it does about the company itself. When you drive a Jeep, and it's funny, like I'll drive my wife's car when the Jeep is in the shop or something happens, and I look like an idiot every time because you have the Jeep wave, and I'll see a Jeep coming, I'll wave at them forgetting I'm in a mom car Explorer right now, and this isn't how this works. It becomes part of your personality. It becomes part of who you are. Same thing with the Harley guys. The Harley guys have their culture, and it's baked into that. People who use Apple products, it's almost a point of pride when they see someone else using that product, and it's a very difficult ecosystem to escape. So when we look at that first slide and talk about why a brand matters, at the end of the day, when Apple puts out a new product, people line up. They haven't even tried it yet. They're just like, here, take my credit card, swipe it, give me whatever you have new. That's the power of a brand that so many other companies don't have. And it's very difficult for someone who's been an Apple user for a long time, all of a sudden switch to Android. It doesn't happen very often because that is one of those key things. So all of that to say, yes.
Would you say then that some of these brands actually become a part of our identity through our
100%.
choice?
100%. That's why people get so upset. I think that's a great way to put it. The brands properly created become a part of our identity, just like our friend group and our family does. So when you look at it, you're like, okay. And that's why people get really mad. Like, it's a very visceral response to see someone who's driving a Tesla to now be vandalizing Teslas. It's like that. It feels like that big of a betrayal. When a brand betrays us, it's a big deal. So even though it's like Bud Light, who cares? It's just beer, like, get over it. That's not the thing. It becomes, people internalize that and it becomes part of who they are. If I drive a Jeep, Tim does, it would be really upsetting if Jeep all of a sudden paired themselves with something that was not consistent with the brand. And it was one of those things where, like, I don't want to be affiliated with that, but now all of a sudden I have to give up part of my identity because you were inconsistent. It feels like a betrayal because it is. So all of those things put together are huge. But to that point, you still see that Jeep logo for people who believe in that brand and love that brand. It's still important. So all of those things that we said early on, yes, a brand is not your logo, tagline, or slogan, but man, does it still matter. It's still very much like hearing somebody's name and then attributing characteristics to that individual, that person, that name. So now we get to finally talk about logos and taglines. So a few things, and this is really important. We threw this into the slide on purpose. So how to build a profitable logo that you might hate. So for those of you on Zoom, let me grab one. These were our early, let's see, oh, can't see. So these were our early business cards. That was our early logo. I loved it. It was very complicated. It had a lot of Easter eggs in it. Good marketing, we would always say, is a tough pill to swallow. Because at the end of the day, like, you're going to hear things about your brand that you don't like if you want to do the profitable thing. So the H had like a pill in there, kind of hidden. And we were like, okay, that's cool. Like, it's an Easter egg. People are going to love it. But we also looked at like the moon landing, because our initial tagline when we first started the company and throughout, Hickey Marketing Group, leave your mark. And we were like, what are notable marks left on societies, left on brands and culture? There's not a lot more iconic than the moon landing. So we looked at the boot print and we put that into the logo. We did all of these things only to learn more about branding and realize that I fell into the exact same trap that almost every small to mid-sized business company does. And that's making a logo that's too complicated. It's one of those that a lot of people can't immediately see and remember. And when we started playing by the numbers and growing a team, the team would hear us do presentations like this for our clients where we're actually rebranding them. And they had to come back to us and say, okay, I know you like that logo. I get it. It's kind of it's a touchy subject. We know that you love it, but we would never do that for a client. So do we want to go by the numbers or what we like? And we had to take our own medicine and go through that. And these are the keys to creating a logo that is going to be profitable, but also you might hate. So one of the keys is the bigger the brand, the smaller the logo. And what do we mean by that? You look at really small companies that are just starting out. A couple $1,000s is a lot of money when you are starting a company from scratch. It might be half of what you have in the bank account at that time. But you go out to a graphic designer and say, I need a logo. And you want to see that someone put in the work for the logo that you actually received. So what do? This graphic designer, because that's what they do. They do graphic design, not branding. They give you a piece of artwork that explains your business. And you look at it and you're like, wow, this tells a story about my brand. Problem is most people can't understand it. So looking at the next thing, the fewer colors, the easier it is to own that color scheme. That is absolutely key. A lot of small businesses have 10 different colors where they're like, oh my gosh, we are in Prescott, Arizona. Prescott, Arizona has one of the most beautiful sunsets. We love it. We're going to use all three of these colors. So we have the cotton candy skies when we have, that's great, but it makes it very difficult to own every single one of those colors. The other really key thing that we look at is if you can't draw it, your customers can't remember it. And that was the difficult thing. Like our team would come to me when we were having the logo talk and they were like, can you draw our logo? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Then I grab a pen and paper and I'm like, it was close, 70% close. It's not enough. So at the end of the day, if you can't draw it, your audience can't remember it. Let's really put this into practice right now. 1976, Apple rolled out their first logo. And if it looks hard to read and convoluted, it's because it was. And they did exactly what every small company does. They said, we need to make a logo that tells our story as Apple. And you know what? Newton, under the tree, the apple falling, Newtonian physics, that shows, and they had a great story around it. It was a smart story. It was a brilliant story. I mean, you look at Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, these are not dummies. Like they had a great story. The problem was every sales call that they went on to sell Apple computers, they would have had to tell that story personally because they were the only ones who could fully understand what that looked like and meant. Go to 1977. Now all of a sudden they start simplifying down because they're learning these things. How many billboards do we have to put out before people can remember and draw the 1976 logo? It's never going to happen. I mean, unless you're talking to a bunch of art students who can actually see it on one screen, draw it on another, it's not going to happen. 1998, they simplified even more, but they felt like they lost a little bit of the brand. So then as you see, they actually go into oversimplification mode all the way into 2017, which is the last time they've made a change. And they just took it into that ultra simple logo. But guess what? If we take this off the screen, we can all draw it pretty darn close. And the sad thing is, even for me and my old logo, I could draw the Apple logo better than I could ours. And that's not even taking into account other elements. The other thing, you look at this, like what color does that look like?
Turquoise.
We're getting there, it's Tiffany blue. Tiffany owns a color, an entire color. It's not just their brand. We don't need to show the Tiffany logo, the tagline, the slogan, a diamond ring, none of that. They own a color. How crazy is that for a brand to own a color? But let's go back to that first slide for a second. You're getting married and you really want to go over the top. You can get the exact same diamond ring for probably a third of what it would cost at Tiffany. But when you really want that experience there, it's about the box. You're going to pay 2/3 more so that when you hand your fiance that box, it's that Tiffany blue box with that white ribbon. They own that experience and they own that color. Tiffany didn't overcomplicate it. They picked one color and decided we are going to own it. And it's been doing them well for well over 100 years. I mean, that is insane when you look at how much that could actually mean.
And they charge a whole lot more.
They do. But that's the thing. So when we look at that first slide, there's endless case studies. And this is so hard. Like we could literally have a 3-day summit on branding and still feel like we didn't have enough time. So doing this in 60 minutes is tough. But to your point, yeah, they charge more. And the other thing is when people buy a Tiffany engagement ring, usually the necklace that they buy for the anniversary, that it's the same thing. It's very difficult to go from Tiffany to something else. So Tiffany has more people who are absolutely 100% buying the product at a higher price, but then they're buying more and more products for them. They don't have to go out and find those clients everywhere. Yeah, yeah.
Hit a button here that I can't access from over there. Pardon us, folks. We're having trouble enabling the chat. There we go. A magic secret button.
All right.
I think chat should be on.
Perfect. So yeah, when we look at, and we've done this focus group so many times for clients where we compare their logo to their competitors who are actually taking their clients. And one of the things that we'll do is we'll see if they can draw their competitors' logos. A lot of the times they can because they're simple, but they make fun of their logo. Oh, it looks like they didn't even try. But we look at Nike, like when we ask people like, okay, no, doesn't matter what your favorite is, just first running shoe company that comes to mind. It's almost always that when people have to do their gut instinct. And then we would have a thing of like colored pencils and everything out and like, okay, draw the Nike logo. Everyone can draw it to like 90%. Same thing. Number one computer company, your phones, any of that stuff that pops in your mind, it's Apple, fast food, McDonald's. But when you look at that, all of those are logos that you could draw in no time. The funny thing about it is though, if you were a company that was doing fast food and you're like, hey, we just came up with a really great burger, we believe in it, we want to go to market, and you hired a graphic designer and they came to you with that silly little M, and you're like, I paid you $1,000 for this or whatever it is, you'd be furious. But that's what a multi-million-dollar brand looks like versus these big things where people like build out these crazy complex logo that nobody can understand, nobody can remember, and even the business owners themselves can't draw. That's where it all ends up going wrong. So if you can't draw it, customers can't remember it. That's really one of the golden rules. And this is one of those things I thought was like hilarious. I'm like, okay, we all remember vandalizing school property, drawing these things on everything, and we don't even know what the brand was entirely. It was easy and it was kind of fun to draw. So guess what? If you were able to go to a dump and find nothing but school desks from the 80s and 90s, 80% would have bubble gum and this scratched into it multiple times, because it was one of those things where it's like, okay, it was a brand that came up with a logo that was super simple. It was easy to draw, but it was complex enough that it was still fun. They added an element of fun in there, but it's like, how is it? And it's funny, like even in our office, we were like, as soon as I had that slide up, people were like, oh my gosh, I remember my brother drawing that. And it's like, that was the thing. If you can't draw it, other people can't remember it. And that is the cardinal sin of any marketing push or any platform, is if people can't remember it. If you have a logo people can't remember, it's going to cost you a lot of money to get that out into the public. On to, now, so we have the logo. It's going to be simple. It's going to be easy to draw, no more than 2 colors. And we highly recommend that one of those is like a dark gray for the text. And then I'm going to own red. Same thing with Coca-Cola. They own their red, and it's not red. It's hex code 4431862. Like they don't play around. They own that color. But same thing, if you show that red square and you ask people like, okay, what brand is this? A good 60% of the room knows just from the color alone. That's powerful. Same thing with Amazon and their color blue. So we've talked about the tagline or the logo. Let's talk about the logo or the tagline that's going to support that. So a great logo is important. Then we also need the tagline that is going to support it. So at the end of the day, a great tagline is usually 6 words or less is ideal. We've seen so much data showing that the longer a tagline gets, the less effective it is, and less able people are to tie that into the logo so that they remember the logo, then the tagline to support it. The other thing that's really important is it needs to explain your core promise to prospects and clients. If you can make that promise quickly and easily, you're going to do a good job and you're going to win. And the funny thing is, so many companies focus on looking really professional and really, they get almost overly consumed by every piece of grammar, every piece of punctuation, where you look at big brands like Yeti. Once again, really simple logo. We can all picture it. Just says Yeti in capital letters, and it's got a little rounded curve. That's it. That's all it is. Their tagline, you're like, oh, they're going after really high-end clientele that can, easily drop $500 on a cooler. They're gonna, it's gonna be overly correct when it comes to grammar. Nope. Wildly stronger, comma, keeps ice longer. They're like, we need to be able to articulate our core competency, what we do, our promise and our value proposition. But they had to take a paragraph and say, okay, what's unique about our coolers? Man, you're not going to break these things. They're bear proof. You could drop them out of a car. They're going to be fine. They keep ice forever. Okay, now make it a sentence. Okay, now make that sentence 6 words or less. And it turns into that, even though you look at it and you're like, grammatically, that's a nightmare. And it is, but it doesn't matter because people know it, trust it, and they can remember it. Yeah.
We have a question from, I think it's Juliet. So is it legal to use Tiffany blue as one of your colors?
Man, that's a really good question. So I will preface any of this by saying I'm not an attorney, but a trademark is much more than just a color. So yes, if you use, I've seen a lot of brands use a very similar red to Coca-Cola, but it's the other brand around it. If you used if you had Tiffany blue, white lettering, and it was very confusing, especially if you're in the same space. If you're in the jewelry space, yeah, you're probably going to run into a lot of trouble. If you are an IT company or you are a salon and spa, you can use a lot of things, but it can't remind other people of that brand and create brand confusion. So that's a really good question. But it's as long as you have enough elements that it looks unique, because there's a lot of brands that you look at and you're like, huh, okay, they might not be brother and sister, but they're definitely related. Like there's a lot of brands that you look at that way. And really one of the main things, especially legally, is if it can cause brand confusion and you could take their sales on accident and someone thinks they just bought a Tiffany ring, but they really bought Tiffany, it's going to be a pretty big problem. So you want to make sure that you're still good there and everything is good. But that, yeah, great question. So that tagline needs to explain your core promise, needs to be easy to remember. And at the end of the day, those are the three things that you need to make sure. Is your tagline supporting the logo and making sure that people can remember what your promise is? Also, is it easy for people to remember? And don't have a ton of people in this room. I'd love to have at least 20 for a focus group, but let's test this out. So as soon as it comes to your mind, like just throw up a hand, shout it out, McDonald's. I'm loving it. Like it's easy. People know that immediately. Now we look at one of their competitors that is still doing okay. It's not everything, but when you look at Jack in the Box, does anyone, no one has a clue. We didn't either. We were like, okay, someone should know this. And we looked up like recent ad campaigns, what it is. Theirs acted a lot like a small business. They said, okay, we want to explain everything we do. We're everything from burgers to tacos to egg rolls. All cravings are welcome here. That's the tagline for it. Their employees probably can't remember most of it. And when you look at the word count, it's big. And you also look at a tagline, you have to do it right and then repeat it. Companies that change their tagline every 2 to 3 months, it never sticks. Same thing with 2 to 3 years. I'm loving it. That's been around for a long time. Same thing, State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Like we can all say it on cadence. Like it's not just we say it along to the beats that they created in their commercial. We know it, we've heard it, we understand it. Now another one, and the funny thing is when we look at ad spend, this brand spent more. So Geico actually spent significantly more than State Farm getting this out there. Does anyone remember it?
Even a caveman.
That was like 3 campaigns ago, but even a caveman can do it. That's 5. You remember that one and it's 5 words. This is the new one. And when we looked at it, we're like, oh yeah, that's right. But nobody can remember it. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on your car insurance. It's too long. So none of us in this room remembered it. And that's the kiss of death to any brand. They spent so much money getting everyone in this room, everybody online to remember their logo, their tagline, and their ad campaign. And none of it. Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, we know the Geico Gecko, remember the Geico Caveman, but it's like, okay, what does it mean? And they were just trying to articulate, we are less expensive than a lot of your competitors. You can say 15%. Oh yeah, by the way, it's fast, 15 minutes or less. Oh yeah, by the way, we focus on car insurance. That's too much information for one group to understand, remember, and actually get dialed in. This shot in the background too, like that was so important to this presentation for me anyway, because that was just a really cool shot we got when we were out with the client, where it was the first time I was envisioning. We tell people all the time, but it never seemed real to me. I know it's real, but for so many brands and there's so much research and data that showed like 6 years ago, people got on average 2,000 ad messages a day. And I'm like, I still can't, it doesn't feel true. But standing there, I was like, oh my gosh, like this feels like the epitome of that. You're in a crowded market. Not everybody can remember every ad campaign out there, so make yours easy for them to remember. Yeah.
Like the Jack in the Box, I think of Taco Bell, because
Yep.
they kind of ripped them off and they came out with a Crave Box.
Yeah.
So they took their slogan and their name, they took it down to 2 words. They said Taco Bell. It's a Crave Box.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I understand what that is.
Yeah. But that's the funny thing. Okay, so let's go back to the Tiffany question. Can we use Tiffany blue? If it creates brand confusion, it's a muddy area, but you can also take market share from a competitor by doing that. So it's very possible that Jack in the Box put that out. They talk about all cravings being welcome here. Then you have a competitor throughout the cravings box, and they're actually getting benefit from their ad campaign. So it's really important that you own that. Same thing, like Disneyland, like we all know, happiest place on earth, easy to remember. Then you look at their top competitor, has parks all over the United States, and it's like, okay, Six Flags Magic Mountain. We do this in focus groups. Everyone does the same thing. They shrug and they're like, I don't know. I've been there, but I don't know. And theirs is the thrill capital of the world, but nobody knows it. And if nobody knows it, it's not worth having. So that if a tree falls in the wood, but nobody's there, it doesn't make a noise. Like if no one can remember your tagline, is it worth having it? Absolutely not. Like it can actually do more damage than good. So I want to make sure that we leave some time for Q&A. It's really, really, we're covering a lot. But this is the most important thing. I cannot articulate it enough, especially in the current climate. Your brand associations are everything. At the end of the day, your brand is basically a relationship that you are creating with your audience, with your prospects, future potential employees. Like that's the other thing is we've noticed that brands that have a solid, all this is dialed in, they get better employees working for them. They build better team culture. They have better clients that the entire thing, it all is a benefit for them. So when we look at this, the brands are really key. There's a book out there called Shoe Dogs. I cannot recommend enough that people read it, or if you want to watch the movie, it's called Air. And it basically is all about Nike coming very close to failing in the basketball market. Runners were shrinking. That entire market was shrinking rapidly. Basketball was exploding. But we had Reebok and we had Adidas who just owned the basketball market. No one wanted anything to do with Nike. They basically had a few buckets of cash that they were going to put on up and coming college athletes to try to get into that, because they knew that if people saw winning basketball teams wearing Nike, everyone who wanted to win would start wearing it. But they looked at it and said, okay, we're putting all of our money in on Michael Jordan, and they gave him a piece of the shoe deal. It was that important. That's never happened before. Where an athlete, they were like, okay, you're going to get a percentage of every shoe sold. And they put everything in on it. And because of that winning franchise, Nike became the thing that people wear when they want to go and win. That was the entire thing. So associations are everything. And let's use it as a friend, because at the end of the day, a brand is a relationship and it's a promise that you can keep. And that's what every friendship is. When you have a friend, there's that unspoken bond. There's that unspoken, hey, if you need someone, I'm there, vice versa. When you show up and you do something they don't expect, you make an off-color joke they weren't expecting, and they're like, oh, that's not like him, or you're rude to someone, that breaks their personal brand. And everything we're talking about here works for personal brand as much. We were talking about that in our own company. And one of the things that popped up, and we're talking about what's the crossover between personal brands and company brands. And Danielle brought up an example of, there was a car salesman in our local area that was known for talking more people out of buying a car than he talks more people out of a car than he talks people into it. And because of that, so many people's families are like, oh, we use Joe. And they're like, oh, we do too. And it was this thing where it's like, that was in his character. He would never sell you a car that you didn't expect. John on our team had very similar stories where it was just somebody did something unexpected for their industry. And all of a sudden they created that brand around them that I would send my grandmother, I would send my mom to that car salesman, because if it's not right, he's going to do everything in his power to not let her buy it, let alone forcing someone into it. That's a promise. And at the end of the day, a brand is a promise that you are going to keep, you're willing to keep, and capable of keeping the entire way around. And at the end of the day, those associations are everything. So when we look at Tesla and what happened with them, the CEO kind of broke that. I'm not saying he did anything right. I'm not saying he did anything wrong. He did something that shocked the people who purchased the product and said, wow, this isn't what I feel that I signed up for when I bought your brand.
It didn't fit with their image of themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And the people who were using that product, this is who I think I am. And all of a sudden, when I pull that Tesla key out and I'm trying to signal to people that I care about the environment, that I care about this and all those things, it broke that. Same thing for people who would go into a fridge and watch the game and pull out a Bud Light. They were like, I can't be seen drinking this because everyone's gonna like, it became a thing. Yeah.
Michael Jordan. So basically, politics have affected the Tesla brand. in a strong
Absolutely.
way. So Michael Jordan, when he was winning his championships, I was living in the Chicago area. And the Chicago area is strongly Democratic area, Illinois is strongly Democratic state.
Yep.
So there were active local Democrats who were trying to get Michael Jordan to support the Democratic Party.
Yep.
Basically, in Chicago. And they knew how he felt personally about things and they thought, well, Michael will be agreeable, he'll be amenable to this. And so when they spoke with him, here was his answer. He shook his head, no. And he said, Republicans buy shoes too.
I remember that interview. It's true. And that's man, he was so genius in so many ways, like from a brand, man, he was a great basketball player, but he knew branding almost better than anybody. I
He
mean,
knew
that's
himself, he knew his own brand.
100%. And that made a difference to everything. So when we talk about consistency, like he was consistent. He was like, hey, I'm in basketball. I'm in it to win. This is what I do. I'm not going to associate with something else that would absolutely divide the brand and make people pick a side. I'm here for people who want to push hard, people who want to win. And that became his entire brand. And at the end of the day, that was everything for Nike. Nike was not a front runner at all. Adidas was ahead of them. Reebok was ahead of them. That's all it took was that association. So for individual brands, this is why it's so important when you see community involvement type of a thing. And you're like, man, we own a pet store. It is so important that people see your brand out at every one of those Humane Society events and they see you supporting things where they're like, oh, I love my dog. I love pets. They love pets too. That's a much stronger bond than, oh, that place is 50 cents less per bag for dog food. And they're not going to stop shopping with them. If they feel like they know you, they trust you, they understand exactly what that looks like. And the other thing that I kind of want to throw in here as a bonus is some of the key frequently asked questions that we throw out in focus groups when we're trying to refine a brand, because so many people, even it's so funny, like when we go through our own branding exercises as a company, every 3 to 5 years, we just do a check-in with our brand. Doesn't mean we're going to change it. In fact, we tried to change it, but well, that's another point that I should bring up. We tried to change the name of Hickey Marketing Group a couple times because as the team grows and there's more people, I'm like, okay, this isn't about one last name. This is the team. And, oh, this is a really cool name. And we would roll it out to existing clients. And we've had a couple who are very large clients that were like, oh, so who are you selling to? And we're like, oh, we're not selling. It's just, we thought this would be, okay, so what's changing? Okay, who do I call when, and we're like, nothing's changing. It's just a rebrand. And they were like, I don't trust it. I've heard this before. And we're like, oh my gosh, we can't rebrand because there's enough, there's enough brand equity there that people know, like, and trust. And they're like, man, I've gone through so many marketing agencies. You guys do what you say you're going to do. This was a thing. I don't want to change. So for some brands, even when we look at it and we're like, okay, this brand isn't, it doesn't hit any of those 3 bullet points, but you can't change it. It would cost more to change it than it would what you're losing by not, because you built such a great reputation around it. And that was a great word that you used. It's a reputation. And sometimes the reputation is so good that it's difficult to change that brand. But if you are going to change that brand, or if you're just doing a check-in to figure out what's going on, one of the scripts that we love to use, and this is kind of it's a must for our clients, it's almost a prerequisite when we're doing a rebrand, is that we get to call 10 of their best clients. And we get to ask them a series of questions. But the CEO of that company or someone very high up has to contact those people who are going to be called before the phone call and let them know, hey, you are so important to our business. We had a marketing firm ask us, who are our top 10 favorite clients? You, of course, were in that list, and we need your help to do 2 things. Number one, make sure that we're telling our story to other people just like you, because if we could find more clients like you, our life would be great. We love working with you. This is a great relationship. We want to find more people like you. But number 2, we want to make sure that we are keeping our promise to you every step of the way. They're going to ask you a few questions. It's going to be candid, take no more than 10 minutes of your time. And here are the questions that we're really trying to get to the heart of. Number 1 is who did they work with before they switched companies? if this is a pest control company, just for fun, they're like, okay, were you using someone before? If the answer is yes, there was a pain point why they left. Either their competitor was too expensive, they didn't follow up, they didn't show up when they were on, whatever it was, there was an issue there. So we asked why they left and then why they picked the other company. Oh, my perception of them was my neighbor said that they always show up on time. They use much safer chemicals and I was worried about my pets. Oh, great. That's how many people said that? Because that tells us what the messaging should actually be for the brand. And one of the other key elements is asking those individuals, and we already know the answer, but we've noticed that if you don't preface that question with this, it kind of falls away. So one of the first things is, would you recommend this company to someone else? I don't know why you have to ask that question first, considering we know the answer is yes, or we wouldn't be on the phone with them. But they say yes, then the next question is, what would you tell friend, family member, neighbor when you recommend this company? Like, oh, that's easy. You know, Ted's awesome and his team always X, Y, and Z. They write your ad campaign for you. They build your brand for you. Because at the end of the day, they are closer to it. And even like, I understand branding, but I can't do it for my own company when I try because we're too close to it. But when we ask our clients, you're like, oh my gosh, they wrote a better tagline than I ever could for our own company. They articulated why they work with us and why they stay with us better than I ever could. So I could not recommend more. If you are thinking about a brand, you're thinking about, you know, let's just gut check our brand and see how on we are. Talk to your existing clients and see kind of what that looks like. And those questions really give you a very clear look into, you know, if your brand matches customer opinion of the people who are actually your biggest fans. Because when you talk to your biggest fans and let them write your story, they'll do it better than even the best marketing firm can at the end of the day. And that's why we lean hard into those interviews and elements there.
Daniel, quick question.
Yeah.
Sometimes the innovation factor with a brand causes you to break relationship with that brand because you prefer the older product like Saucony. Saucony, Saucony running shoes, always coming out with a new shoe. I know innovation is important, but it seems good to have older versions available for true fans.
Absolutely. I couldn't recommend that enough. Let's go back to just the people who are passionate about running are passionate about running. People who are passionate about Harley, same with them. People who are passionate about Jeep, same thing. So yeah, I would be really bummed out if the 2026 Jeep Wrangler didn't look like a Jeep Wrangler. It would really upset people. So 100%, because you have to realize like what a brand is at its core. It's a relationship. And your logo, your tagline, slogan, your logo is really like your name. Okay, what's the name of your company? What is the thing that I can associate with? And how do you make that easy? Your tagline and your slogan is kind of your promise. It's you telling people like, hey, we're an off-road company, we're tough, rugged, or we're a running shoe company that cares about fit and we care about comfort way more than style. These might be the ugliest shoes you've ever seen, but this is what other runners wear when they want to do ultra marathons or whatever that looks like. Hoka kind of built their brand around that too. Like they intentionally didn't go crazy with design. They wanted them to be stand out. And for people who were like, if you're wearing those, you're a serious runner because they are not the most stylistic things, but man, I associate with you. We're in the same club. But to your point, if they went hard into another design element where they were looking at nothing but the design, it would be a really big issue because people who love that brand, it feels like losing a friend in a way. You're like, I get that you're still there, but man, you're not really you anymore. It's like that friend from college that you're like, oh my gosh, that's that guy. Every time we hang out, we have the most fun ever. See him 5 years later, and it's nothing but work talk, and he's checking the stock tickers and all that. And you're like, man, I appreciate that you're still John, but dude, you're not the same John. Like, we're not going to hang out as much. Like, you're still you. But man, I miss the old times, and that is kind of that old product. So yeah, for that company, if they did abandon the old shoes that they were using, and they kind of built their name on, yeah, that's going to be a really serious issue for a long time because those people who were their true fans, they're going to miss the old brand. And to that point too, the kind of final thing is forms of branding, and that comes into strong branding. I'd be interested. I wish the person who put that question in the chat was here because I would love to ask a couple follow-up questions about, what was it about those old products that you liked and what would you tell people about those products? Because I'm willing to bet you've probably referred other people to that brand because you were a believer and you believed in it for a certain reason. If you can type it, that'd be awesome. But yeah, I'm just kind of curious, who have you recommended that product to and what was it that you said that you liked about that old product? Because weak branding is where 95% of businesses live. Weak branding is what you say about your company. Anyone can make any promise and people have learned to just not. When you say the fastest, people don't believe it. You say the least expensive, people don't believe it. You say the best customer service, people don't believe it. They've heard it from everyone time and time again, and it usually isn't true. A strong brand is what other people say about your company. So when somebody comes in and they say, oh my gosh, this running shoe is the best running shoe I've ever had. I used to have shin splints at mile 5. I can go 10 miles now. My plantar fasciitis, it's gone. These shoes are amazing. The person you told that to isn't going to ask questions. They're going to go to the next store and that they can find. They're going to buy a pair because they believe what you said about that brand. You are not incentivized to lie or tell stories about that brand to push sales. You're an avid runner. You're probably doing better than they are. They look up to you and they look up to your recommendation. So when we look at that Michael Jordan example, man, if Mike's winning that many championships and he's recommending this, that's what I want because I want to win those championships. If that's the shoe you tell me to wear and you're running ultra marathons that I want to be doing and I'm still trying to break my first 5K, great, I'm going to listen to you. And that's that brand. But that is the strongest branding. That's what we all want to be moving towards, is having a brand that is so easy to tell the story about that other people can tell it for you. And that's why that short tagline is so important, because people are going to remember that tagline. It spurs them on when you go to tell people about your experience and explain to people what it is that makes you so different. And at the end of the day, that is really what I want to leave everybody with, is make sure that your messaging is consistent. Make sure that it is short enough for people to remember. Make sure that your logo is simple enough that you can draw it. If you can't draw your own logo, everybody else is helpless because you see your own logo more than anyone. And when we give that challenge to business owners, it's funny. At first, they accept the challenge gladly and get excited. Then they get the pen in their hand, and then you see the frustration start to grow because they recognize that, man, we broke some rules, but I love our old logo. We were in that same boat. I love the old logo. I love telling the story of it. I think it was pretty clever. Doesn't matter what I think if people can't remember it. It's costing us money every day that we kept that brand that I loved and I was attached to that other people can't remember. So that's the really, really big thing. I'd love to open it up to any questions. I see a lot in chat, so I'm not sure if we want to hit that or any more in the room, but I would love to make sure that we hit that. And I can't recommend enough. I'm going to go back a slide. There's a couple we have. But yeah, at the very beginning, highly recommend go to hickeymarketinggroup.com/score. And it has all of this information in just a 2-page PDF. So you don't have to go through the slides, try to break it down. And then it also has a checklist on there where you can actually audit your own logo, your own tagline, your own slogan, and see kind of where it fits as far as profitability and how much people can remember it. So those things are all key. So.
Well, thank you, Daniel, and everyone who's remote. The meeting technically was 1 hour, but we'll stay on as long as questions keep coming in until the bottom of the hour. So fire away from into the Q&A box for those on Zoom, and we've got some folks here that hopefully have some questions for Daniel.
All right. Anything, or go to chat?
Also, myself and Teresa and Vivian, our SCORE, we're certified mentors. If you'd like to have a conversation about how SCORE can help you and your business.
That is huge here as well. I just we have seen so many clients that we have now that we get into their business. We start looking at things and we're like, oh my gosh, you guys crushed this. And oh my gosh, I see why you're growing so quick. Like, what are you guys doing? And for so many of them, they do have a SCORE mentor and they have someone walking them through. One of the cool things about SCORE is it's not just one core competency. They bring people from all over the place. So if you want to talk legal or finance, I've got no clue. They've got people that can answer that Tiffany Blue question significantly better than a marketer can specific to that. Same thing with, okay, we're up against a funding thing, or how do we do this? SCORE is just a really cool resource for that. And it is just a common thing. We see businesses that have got a ton of things that they're doing right. And we're like, man, how did you we know that we're going to hear SCORE somewhere in the conversation usually. So yeah, it's a resource I cannot recommend checking out enough for sure.
Thank you. And we do have a couple of questions. So Juliet is mentioning that newer shoes were just not as comfortable for long runs, and the form, fit, and look of the shoe was great. Then they came out with newer stuff and it was too uncomfortably modern.
Yeah.
Modern isn't necessarily better. So that comment came in from Juliet.
Well, and I want to hit that that is so key. A lot of the times, like, brands forget who got them where they wanted to go in the first place, and they start chasing the next shiny object. I love watching brands evolve, but it's also extremely scary when you start seeing Alex Hormozy calls it the woman in the red dress all the time, where he's like that scene in the Matrix where you see Neo and he's like following along and he's on track. And then all of a sudden he turns away and he like looks at this woman walking by in the red dress, and his mentor is like, were you listening to me, or were you watching the woman in the red dress? And it was the distraction. And he turns around, it was one of the agents with a gun pointed to his head, and he's like, that's the danger that businesses get in. Like that shiny new object where that running shoe company sees something else another company's doing, and they're like, oh, we should try that. And it's like, no, if your customer wanted that, they'd already be working with that other brand. So that new bright, shiny thing, that new distraction just costs you. Your existing individuals who work with you, know your brand, love your brand. And I love that. Like, you literally just wrote a commercial for them. They look good, I can run farther. That it's like, okay, that's something that if you told someone, that's a great ad campaign. They just lost that customer trying to chase after something new. And that usually doesn't work out well for brands. I understand for some brands, they have to pivot. I get pivoting, but forgetting who you are is also extremely dangerous. So
we have a question from Gordon. He's wondering which is your current logo, the one on your slide here,
yep,
or the one on your website.
So slide and website should be the same now. So yes, we actually just redid everything to this because we wanted to simplify. And one of the cool things there too is we are always super upfront with our clients that when you change a website, when you change SEO, when you do any of those things, when you do it even right, one of the primary things that happens is you see a dip originally where Google's trying to figure out your website. They're trying to figure out what you're doing. And then the same thing happens with the rebrand. A lot of the times you rebrand and people are like, oh, we're going to skyrocket to the moon right now, right? No, you're probably going to actually have a short dip for a couple of weeks where clients look at it and they're like, ooh, did they sell? Are they under new ownership? What is this? And it's up to your website hero video. So that opening video that tells that story to show people what the rebrand is, that shows what it is. And then your brand really takes off. So the new logo, that's exactly what that was. Something simple, easy that people can draw, but also keeps that promise. Because we hear a lot of marketing firms just like, oh, you hire us and your sales are going to double tomorrow. And it's like, okay, that's not how it works. That's not what this is. So like showing that in the end, like when you change anything, you're going to see sales dip a little bit. And that doesn't matter or you're going to see visibility dip a little bit, then all of a sudden you're ready to skyrocket. We see the same thing with CRM systems. We see the same thing with any really big business component that needs to be updated. So yeah, good question though.
I was just going to chat in everyone. Everyone who attended today or registered actually to this event will get a link to the recorded webinar.
Perfect.
And also the slides. So that will take about a day or two. And I think we might be coming to a close here. So yep. Daniel, perfect. Thank you again for
of course. No, we appreciate it.
And on behalf of SCORE, we were a little squeezed on time, sorry, at the beginning because of some technical difficulties. But for those of you who don't know SCORE, we are a nonprofit group of about 10,000 volunteers US wide. And so we are a free service for small businesses and startups. So we are basically three things. We have access for anyone who would like to sign up to a dedicated mentor, and that mentor can bring in subject matter experts. We've got former CEOs, marketing VPs. We've got resources galore on pretty much any topic you can come up with in business. There's an expert within our ranks to pull in as the conversations get deeper and deeper. So you have access to one-on-one mentoring. We have these workshops. Many of them are recorded on our website. Many of them are live or Zoom, in person, what have you. And then we have this huge resource library on our website. It's chock full of templates and how-to guides, white papers that talk about any topic you can think of in business. We would encourage you to have a SCORE mentor help you navigate it, because it's pretty large and overwhelming, perhaps, if you're new to it. So we encourage you to sign up. As mentors, our engagement is as you need it. So if you want us briefly, we're here briefly. You turn us on as long as you need, and turn us off when you don't need us, and you're always welcome to come back and engage again with SCORE. So there's no commitment or obligation on your behalf to work with us. So with that, we will sign off, and thank you everyone for joining. Have a great day. Cheers.